Uh, we are in the midst of our series on the global church and where we fit into this. And so I decided my experience in terms of mission and service brings me to this point that hope is the antidote to the despair of the world in which we live in. When I started the 8 o'clock service this morning, we didn't know about the officers killed in Baton Rouge. Last Sunday when I concluded worship, I say, I hope that will be a better week than the week before. And it lasts 4 days. 4 days to what happened in Nice. 5 days to what happened in Turkey. 7 days to what happened this morning. It's just been shock after shock after shock. In our country and in other countries. And you might easily say, where the heck is God in this? Why would God allow this? Why would God allow this violence? White on white, black on black, black on white, white on black, Muslim on Muslim, Muslim on non-Muslim. Why would somebody that claims to be ISIS, a follower of Muhammad, take a truck and mow down people who have obviously all the signs and the clothing that they too are Muslim on the streets of Nice and kill 160 people? It simply doesn't make sense to me. It's an evolving world, and the brokenness and the despair just seems to get bigger every single day. It makes the Brexit and maybe Scotland leaving the United Kingdom small potatoes compared to the big things we face in our world and in our country. Didn't we deal with race issues in the 1960s of this country, and it's now 2016 and it's still not solved? Hope is the antidote to despair. I want to share good news with you this morning. And the good news is that this congregation, not me, not Dave, we are talking about people generation before us, invested countless amount of time by giving of themselves, by speaking up, being the voices of social justice and equality. People in this church, congregants and leaders and pastors, have spoke up for those that do not have a voice, for those that have no power. We have given countless millions of dollars towards mission and service and changing people whose lives are in despair. We have given countless, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of volunteer hours to change people's lives, to get alongside them, cook a meal, get into their house, build a house, you name it. And the question is, why do we do it? Why do we feel compelled that we who lead these sheltered lives get out of our little bubble and get alongside somebody who has really been hit by life itself and circumstances and might not have won the lottery like we did? Nothing is different, because the Apostle Paul spoke about this agony, this despair. The world has gone to hell in a handbasket 2,000 years ago. Nothing changes. The only thing that's consistent is change. Paul writes in the book of Romans, he's talking, and the image is of pregnancy. Of our world and nature is like a woman who is pregnant and waiting to give birth. And in this time between being pregnant and giving birth, this is what he says: I consider the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory about to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the creation was subject to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves, we, God's children, are groaning and waiting, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly, while we also wait for the adoption, the redemption from our bodies. For in hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope. Sounds counterintuitive. Hope that is not seen is not hope. Then what is it? For who hopes what is seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. So let's look at what Paul is talking about. 150 some odd years ago, Karl Marx accused Christianity of being the opiate of the masses. That we dope away at life and we sort of sugarcoat everything, and Christianity comes to those in poverty and despair and says, oh, God will fix everything. Just accept Jesus and your life will be wonderful and everything will be okay. Yeah, Christianity has done that. That's true. We've gone too easily into places and say, just believe and your life will be okay. And we know it's not true. The opiate of the masses. I would disagree. Paul would disagree. Paul would say no. What we are as Christians are peddlers of hope. We offer people hope that what is now and what will be in the future is different from each other. That in people's deepest despair and brokenness and heartache and pain, that God is there. That God has not forgotten them. And so Paul says it's like creation is pregnant. And for any of you who've had a child, you know that last week or two is the most difficult. Because where does the baby sit? On your bladder. And you want to go pee the whole time. And you have acid reflux. You can't sleep at night because the acid just pushes up. And you're like, can I get out of this pregnancy? Can I get this baby out? Can this baby be born? And Paul says creation is the same way. It's anticipation. It's waiting. It's groaning. It's painful. Your body feels uncomfortable. You're retaining water. It's like, just get this baby out of me. And imagine having 2 of them or 3 of them. Waiting. Waiting for that day that something new is born and the relief happens. Just like nature, we as humans await that. Patiently waiting for something new to happen, for a new creation to come. For this earth with all its volatility, for human race with all our vitriol, with all our hatred, all the things we do to each other as human beings. I so love what Grace Park said last Sunday, that human beings are the only species of mammal that can show humanity. But we're the only species that can show inhumanity to each other as well. Boy, have we not seen enough of that? And then Paul says there's hope. There's hope. Real, deep-seated hope, and not just frivolous opiate to the masses. And we see it. We hear it from our mission co-workers. But you might say, Roché, that Roman 8 doesn't mean a lot to me today. I don't live in fear. My neighborhood is very safe. My life is actually very boring. I can find a job. I might not always have job security, but I've got skills. I've got experience. I can always get a loan to go to school or get a small business loan. There's so many opportunities for me that I don't resonate with that. I live in relative safety. I live in a safe community, and I live a very boring, content life. And yet, that is not true for most of humanity, who, unlike you and me, do not have the ready access to housing, electricity, and water, and sewage, and gas, and transportation, and public transportation, and good education, and good colleges and schools. And when we get sick, can go to a doctor, a hospital, a physical therapist. When we have mental disease, can go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a marriage therapist or a personal, someone who comes alongside you and gives you life skills, and so on and so on. For most of the world, job training and the jobs that we have, the white-collar, don't exist. It is subsistence living from day to day. It's literally like in the Bible where you have one coin that buys you bread for tomorrow, and then you have to work again to buy bread for the next day and the next day. That's what we encounter in Nicaragua. That's what we encounter in Tijuana. That's what we encounter every time that we cross the border to Malawi or the Congo, or we cross the 405 to go to any of these organizations you see here. For 36 years, we're crossing the border to Tijuana, Mexico. Tom, I just saw Tom sneak in. We've worked out about 250 to 300 houses that we've built over the 36 years. That's amazing if you take that a More ministry thinks that they'll finish house number 19,000 this year. 19,000 families who have a future. 25 years ago, we were one of the first 8 Presbyterian churches in Los Angeles to support Habitat for Humanity. In the 25 years, Habitat in LA and in Long Beach has built 500 new homes. They renovated 500 homes. And in the next 5 years, they're going to build 500 new and renovate 500. That's freaking amazing. And you know what? You can be part of the success story come November when we build 10 new homes in Culver City. We've been cooking meals at OPCC for more than 20 years, doing Thanksgiving baskets for about 15. We've been part of the story of the birth of My Friend's Place. Our former elders started that. The first thing that happened when I came to this church 11 years ago, somebody gave me a cassette. Yeah, that's how long I've been here. They gave me a cassette, and what was it about? Westminster TLC, and how this church built it. That women who come out of abusive relationships or marriages that break up and have nowhere to go, they are desperate because they have children, have a place of sanctuary and safety to go to. Tens of families have come through Westminster TLC in 25 years. It's our legacy. It's our baby. Common Ground, the only HIV/AIDS drop-in center on the west side. OPCC, now with LAMP, the one-stop agency for all your needs. Medical, physical, need a place to stay, need to get clean, sober, need to find a job, need to find a meal. Westside Food Bank. Everything that you see here, that's our story. I was at worship planning team and people said, well, you do know that we have sponsored people before. Speak to Leo Press. Because we sponsored a family from Vietnam in the 70s. And that family actually stayed with Leo in his house. And then Leo says, well, that's not the first one. We actually sponsored a Japanese family in the 1940s. Yeah. when one of our Japanese American families was sent to an intern camp because of the reaction we all have. And then BPC sponsored a family and said, we want to give you sanctuary and safety. Folks, this is a long time ago. This church has been involved over decades. Thanks be to God for what we have done. And so we get to Bluefields. And you know what we get? People ask us, why are you here? Why would you fly from Los Angeles, from Hollywood? Okay, everybody knows Los Angeles is Hollywood. Why would you ever come down from there to here? What motivates you? And we say, well, because we're a church, because we love God, we want, because we care about you. And the fact that we went 2 years ago and have made a commitment to go every 2 years from now on, it just opened up the conversation. I can tell you, if this is my 4th visit, that people open up more to share about what's happening in their life. My child is in prison. I'm a pastor and I've got 10 kids and I don't have a house. This is my life. This is the poverty I deal with, etc., etc. People start to trust us because as we go back and preach at the same church year after year, people realize, oh, you were here 2 years ago, and we've become Facebook friends, and we start to trust one another. And they start to share from their lives. What's happening in church life? What's happening in their personal lives? What's happening in the community? And it's not as if they're unburdening themselves, but they feel free to say, this is what my life is like. And yet, there's hope. I see hope in 26 pastors who represent 21 congregations belonging to Upper Sur, the Associations of Pastors Atlantica Sur, who come together every single month as a group of pastors to share with each other what's happening in their personal lives, what's happening in their church life, and what's happening in the community that they can make a difference. They shame us because we as Presbyterian pastors in this presbytery can't even get together. We had to do a fundraiser for Habitat for Humanity that we can go and build at the same place. That's the way we force ourselves to share time together. And yet they do it so lovingly. Why would you come? Because we come to share hope with you. The fact that you sent 27 of us down there is a message for them, not just that we are representing hope, but that we are the carriers of hope, that God has not forgotten their lives, that God loves them, that God loves us, that we as people that are so overly blessed on the west side of Los Angeles feel like we need to share from our abundance with them. And you know what? Then we discover our scarcity. Yeah, we have a lot of stuff in the checkbook and a lot of stuff in the bank account, but boy, we don't have time. We have poverty of time. The fact that they would just come to our hotel room and sit there for hours just to be with us, that they would clear their evening schedule and bring their kids. The last night when we had dinner, there were 15 pastors with spouses and kids who came to dinner because they feel like it's important to make time to be with us. Can you imagine us doing that? If they would come here, that you would just show up at Gordon and Paula's house and just sit on the stoop and just be there? No, our time is too precious. We can't possibly give 2 hours of our time. So what does it look like there? Most of the houses are like that. And you'll see some of the photos. It is just plain wood with corrugated iron roof and built on stilts so that when the floods come, the water goes underneath the house. That house looks safe. There are some houses that the beams are as high as to the roof. And like, how does this house not wash away? This is what houses look like. No electricity, no gas, no sewage, no water. Can you imagine the darkness inside of that? And that's where 5 or 10 people live, using an outhouse, sharing an outhouse with the rest of the community, buying water, trying to get water from a water well. And so we came alongside them and we tried to say, what are your needs and how can we help you? And some of those needs were shoes. Because kids don't have shoes to wear to school and they get infections and worms and all kinds of stuff. And we gave out shoes at the different communities that we went to. This is at Vermaak, where there's 1,000 indigenous Indians, and the husbands go farm on other islands or they go fish. And so the women and the children are left on the island and they grow bananas and mangoes and breadfruit and local stuff to eat, but they live in poverty. And this is actually the pastor's daughter, who is the preschool teacher, and she was going to distribute some of the shoes for us. And this is us putting food together. We took $3,000 of what you had given us, and we put emergency food bags together of flour and sugar and oil and masa and what else? Beans and rice. And this will last the family 2 to 3 weeks. And we gave it out everywhere. This is where we gave out scholarships. And 4 years ago, they said the government mandates that you wear school uniform. So school uniform, backpack, books, and shoes is about $25. But if you don't have it, you don't send your kids to school. In other words, your kids don't have a future, just like you don't have a future as a parent because you never finished school. And so we started giving out 40 scholarships a year, $1,000. These are some of the families that came to celebrate with us that day, that we were giving out scholarships to change their lives. And they got some food. And then clean water. This bucket has a ceramic container, and you pour the water through it. And then you can filter out any gunk or dirt that is in there, and it will, in a few hours, do 4 gallons of clean drinking water. And we actually had some of that drinking water. And so 50 of these containers will make the difference in 50 families, and maybe with their neighbors. Because if you can drink clean drinking water, you as a parent are able to go work or find work, and your kids are healthy, and your kids can go to school and have a future. Lily did some origami, and she's going to talk about it in a few minutes, and we had lots of fun. And then in October when I was there, I said to Pastora Clara, what are you doing for the women of your community to develop them, that they have income to feed their families, because often because of alcoholism and men who have to work far away or go to the big cities and only come back a few times a year. How can we address this long-term issue? And so the women, the spouses of the pastors and the female pastoras met with us and said, this is about 26 women. If we put all of our dreams together of I want to start a bakery and I want to start baking tortillas and I want to make taquitos and I want to do sewing, it's $8,000. $8,000 of loans will make all our dreams come true. Because you see how it works is most of the pastors don't get paid. They get from the offering that comes in. And the pastors' wives are expected to work for free for the church. And that means there's poverty within the pastor's family, and they are just as poor as the people they serve. And so these pastors' wives and pastoras want to say, we want to break this cycle and we want to actually earn income for ourselves. Can you help us with starting a micro-loan program amongst ourselves? And we will keep each other accountable because we meet once a month, just like the pastors, to pray for the pastors. And we thought this is tremendous. Because once they start their business and they repay it, they will go to the next woman and say, what do you need to start a business that you can feed your family? You know, it's easy to go and do food and give out shoes and give out water. Those are the temporary things that will make a difference for a week or 3 or 6 months or 2 years. But our challenge is this. Our challenge is that kids finish not just elementary school, but finish high school, and only something like 4% go to college. And even when they finish college in Bluefields, nobody sticks around because there's no work for them. All the pastors' kids we met have left town and have gone to Managua because that's where the work is. And they don't come back. All that knowledge, all that passion is gone. We want to change that. We want to change people's family future by ensuring that families have work, have income, that their kids have a future through education. Wouldn't we want to invest everything possible in the lives of our kids and our grandkids that they have a great education? Why would we expect less from them? Pastora Christina, Pastor Moran's wife. I want to close. What is hope? It's the antidote to the despair in our world. I said this morning, I want to share good news with you, and boy, there is good news. We hear from our mission co-workers that in Mbangweni, Malawi, where we've been investing for 25 years, that the mortality rate of infant birth is declining every single year. Because women who would have given birth at home and would have had a bridge baby or would have bled to death are now coming to the hospital, getting care. They just recently took 4 sonar kits, $10,000 a piece, and dropped it off at the 4 hospitals that they can now do sonars with women who are pregnant and see if there's any complications. We have been supporting that hospital for 25 years with sponsoring 3 nurses and a physician's assistant. You are making a difference. Mexico. Neil, how many trips? 36 for you about? About 36 trips. Single-handedly the most that anybody has gone. 36 times in his life. And soon his boys will go. And Carolyn, more than 40 trips. We hear from Tijuana and Rosarito that we are making a difference because people see that we are building houses. They go to somebody who has an Amor house and say, how can I do that? How can I build my own house? How can I buy my own piece of land that I cannot be displaced? We are hearing about the differences we make in the Democratic Republic of Congo. You'll have to come back for that next week. I'll tell you about it. We are making a difference in Bluefields. And you know my philosophy? A philosophy of one. One child, one parent, one family, one district, one community, one town at a time. Over 25, 36 years, we have made a difference. Don't you ever believe the despair of this world that we cannot change lives. Because the world is pregnant in anticipation, waiting for something to be born. And so are we. We are waiting for God to use us to change this world.